Grab Life by the Goals is the podcast for passionate badasses to get inspired, activate their potential, and crush their goals. In a nutshell, we do big shit around here. Whether you're looking to disrupt your career, start or grow a business, or simply have a more kick-ass life, you're in the right place. Come to be inspired, find your swagger, dream bigger, and take actual steps to level up your life. All with a side of real talk and raunchy humor. I'm your host, Lauren Widrick. I'm a life and business coach, and I'm right here on the roller coaster with you. Are you ready? Let's do this. What's up, my badass? Welcome back to another episode of the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. Today, we're here to figure out what the fuck we're all doing with our lives, which is not a question that's asked by lazy or unmotivated people. It's often the successful, high-earning badasses that just start to ask themselves, is this all there is? And it really is a life dilemma because you've invested decades potentially into the identity and the career and the life that you have. So making a change feels very overwhelming and risky. But you're also like, I don't know if I can do this another 30 years. I don't know if I can have this exact career situation until retirement. Hell, I can't even do this 5 more years. Something has to change. And some of us have the feeling that something has to change, but I don't even know what. I don't know what I want, but I know it ain't this. So what do you do in this situation? What's coming up in this episode is a recording of a free masterclass that I run live once every month or two called What the Fuck Am I Doing with My Life? We usually have somewhere between 30 and 40 people register for each of these sessions live. And when they do, I ask them to fill out a couple of questions. What are your big, scary, sexy goals, and what's standing in the way? And without fail, every time I run one of these, it comes down to a few core things. The first is always financial freedom, but what the fuck does that even mean? There are so many definitions of financial freedom, and most of us, when pressed, don't even know what we mean by that. I always have a chunk of people that want to launch a side hustle and have it be the vehicle out of their corporate job, but they're afraid because of the salary and the benefits and the stability that they have. Third, we get a chunk of people who are entrepreneurs and are struggling to scale their business. And between us, they think they're here for the sales advice, but it's really much deeper than that. Their business is not running in alignment with their personality, blueprint, lifestyle, energetics, and that's the secret stuff under the covers. And then lastly, I always have a chunk of people who are like, I'm reaching my goals and I'm still not happy. What the hell? So what you're about to hear is a recording of my most recent live What the Fuck Am I Doing with My Life masterclass. And what we see all the time is that we've got people on the line who don't just want one of those things that I mentioned. They're actually tackling all of them. They're trying to figure out what to do with their corporate career. Should they move up? Should they move out? Should they just coast and ghost? What should they do? Should they start a side hustle now or should they do it later? Or maybe they have the career and the side hustle and they want to grow the business and can't figure out how, all while trying to figure out how to be happier. So if you are one of those multifaceted and people, as I call it, you're doing this and this and this and this, then you are going to love tuning in to this recording of What the Fuck Am I Doing with My Life? Now, before we go there, I have a brand new free mini course that you can take and dive into these topics. It goes way deeper than we do on the webinar. It is called the Life Vision Lab. And in the Life Vision Lab, you are going to figure out what you actually want out of life, down to the experiences, the growth, the contribution, the lifestyle, the best and highest you want to express, your gifts for humanity, and you're going to create a 1-page personal manifesto. So this mini course has 4 short video modules, and then it has a sample manifesto that you can use. It's mine, actually, that you can use as an example to write your own. What's amazing about writing your own personal manifesto is that shit starts to come true very quickly. As you'll hear coming up in the recording ahead, I tell the story of creating my own personal manifesto for things that were wild, totally out of scope for what I thought was possible. And then I look up a couple years later, all of that shit has come true. I have the multifaceted business, the revenue, the penis pool in my backyard, the relationship with my husband, the fitness goals, all these things that I wrote down actually exist now, down to having a book on Amazon and courses, and everything I've ever wanted to create is here in some form or fashion because I created my personal one-page manifesto. So if you would like this free mini course on how to create your own personal manifesto and start making your dreams a reality, go to laurenwidrick.com/life vision lab and you will get immediate access to these 4 mini modules, the sample manifesto. And what's cool is this is actually module 1 of my larger Grab Life by the Goals course. It has 12 total modules to change your entire damn life. So you're getting module 1 for free. The Life Vision Lab is an exercise that we've done at every single one of my summits. We do it in the squad. This is a proven exercise, not just with my own manifesto, but we have so many squad members that have reported that this shit just starts to come true as soon as they write it down in this very particular type of format. So again, go to laurenwidrick.com/life vision lab. You can get access to this mini course and begin writing your personal manifesto today. All right, without further ado, here is the recording of my latest What the Fuck Am I Doing with My Life webinar. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have some breakthroughs. And if you do, reach out to me on Instagram. @Lauren Widrick is my handle. Send me a DM and let me know how it's going for you and if you have the courage and clarity to take your next steps. What's up, my badass? Welcome back to another episode of the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. Today, we're here to figure out how to give less fucks. Because when we give too many fucks, it gets in the way of our goals and our experience of life, and it just doesn't need to be that way. Now, we all do this. You do this. I do this. In fact, I have a very recent story about this. In 2024, I've set a New Year's resolution to go have coffee with my parents every Friday morning, which has been wonderful. They live right up the street. Without this standing coffee meeting, I would go weeks without seeing them. And it's amazing just to be with my mom and dad because they're the coolest. Well, a couple Fridays ago, I dropped in with my coffee, and their first question is always, how's work? And the answer that tumbled out of my mouth was not a positive one. It was like, man, I worked all week on this thing and it wasn't even good. And I had to start over and I'm doing all this stupid Instagram content and it's not working. And I forget what else. I was bitching about like 2, 3, 4, 5 things. And my mom asked me some deeper questions. She's like, is the business doing okay? And I'm like, yeah, the business is great, right? 2024 is off to an amazing start. And she's like, are you doing okay? I said, yeah, I'm doing fine. And she's like, well, all that shit you just said doesn't seem that important. I think you're stressing about it too much. And I think you just need to relax. And right when she said that, I started laughing because I was like, I'm doing it. I'm giving too many fucks about things that don't warrant that much energy. Like the way I was describing work was not the accurate, bigger picture of how work is going, but it was tainting how I was feeling. This is a well-documented phenomenon in one of my favorite books called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And I haven't read the book in a few years. I listen to his podcast religiously now. But if my memory serves, the core tenet of this book is not giving a fuck does not mean being lazy, not caring, being apathetic. It simply means being conscious about where you allocate your fucks and not giving too many fucks where it's not going to benefit you. Basically, reserve your precious few fucks for the things that really matter and fuck the rest. So we've all been guilty of giving too many fucks in some form or fashion. In fact, I've written down a list of examples. I'm going to read it to you here, but I want you to listen through and see which one of these resonate with you, okay? This is what life looks like when you give too many fucks. Not applying for that dream job because you don't feel qualified. Women are especially guilty of this. You give so many fucks that people are going to think your resume isn't good enough. You don't even submit it, which means guess what? You don't get the job. Another example, undercharging for your product because you're afraid to raise the price. You think people are going to judge you or be like, oh my God, who does she think she is charging that? Next up, spending months and months planning your business launch and never actually launching it. You're giving so many fucks about having the perfect plan and every detail ironed out that you're in planning paralysis or planning porn, as I like to call it. And guess what? There's no business. Burning out at work because you're afraid to set a boundary. So I have experienced both sides of this. I have been burned out at work, burning the midnight oil because I was too afraid not to. And then at some point in my career, I stopped giving fucks and I began to set boundaries with my employer. And guess what? It was fine. I did not get fired. Another example is creating tepid, dime a dozen social media posts because you don't want to offend. You don't want your message to be too spicy or to lose followers. So your messaging online is like kind of vanilla and doesn't really turn anybody on that much. How about not applying for speaking gigs because you don't have a fancy polished media kit? Who gives a fuck? I have booked so many speaking gigs with no media kit, no speaker one pager, just my mouth and telling people I wanted to do it. Here's another: spending thousands on a fancy website so that you seem legit. This is the number one mistake I see new business owners make. I made this mistake. In fact, I talk about it in my course. I call it my $7,500 mistake, where I spend all this money on a fancy, legitimate website and these branding videos that did not bring me any business or clients. How about not ending a toxic relationship that you know you need to? We've all been there, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, a professional connection of some sort. You know you want distance from this person, but you're afraid of either hurting their feelings or what they're going to say to you if you bring this up. You're giving so many fucks about it. So you're just staying in this non-ideal relationship and avoiding the whole uncomfortable conversation. How about spiraling out when you do get a hater comment? Have you ever gotten a hater comment on one of your social media posts? If you have, it can spiral you out to the point that you change your messaging or you stop posting altogether. You're giving so many fucks about some stranger asshole on the internet that it's affecting your power and your shine. Here's an example that's relevant to me: worrying that people are going to think you're a bad mom because you curse sometimes, or maybe because you dress provocatively like I do. And so you change who you are as a person and a parent just so Becky up the street doesn't think that you're a hoe. What about not writing the book that's inside of you because you're giving so many fucks about whether anybody would even read it? And so that book is going to die inside of you because of these fucks. How about saying yes to everybody and everyone so that you don't let them down or piss them off? So you are running around burned out yes man or yes woman because you're giving so many fucks that people think you're not involved or don't care about them or whatever. And it's affecting your experience of life. Okay, one last example: worrying that people think you're a douchebag because you want wealth or talk about money. And so you don't talk about your desire for wealth, which means you don't surround yourself with people who share those same desires. And these things are locked inside of you and they atrophy and die away. So those are just a handful of examples. There are so many more, but this is why this eats me up inside. This is why I do what I do for a living. It's because any one of these may not seem like that big of a deal, but what it results in is delaying your dreams. It results in you playing small. It results in you being addicted to planning porn and always saying, it's going to happen someday, it's going to happen someday, and it's never happening now. It results in your one beautiful life being wasted to burnout. It might even result in you faking your way through life, censoring who you really are, and keeping that version stuffed inside of you. Giving too many fucks can result in anxiety spirals, spending all your time worrying about OPP, other people's perceptions. And the ultimate, it may result in a constant state of anxiety or maybe even anxiety attacks and spirals. You spend your life worried about OPP, other people's opinions. And the biggest tragedy of this all is just wasting your potential and living with regret. That is my gift to humanity. Sometimes it gets packaged in penis jokes and conferences and fun courses and silly content. Like, it all comes out as these fun little access points. But y'all, my work is so deep. My gift to humanity is making sure that you don't die with regret. Okay. So when we are giving too many fucks about things that don't matter, it's robbing us of our lives. And I will not stand for that. This shit keeps me up at night. The most classic example I can think of is how starting my side hustle got me promoted in my corporate job. And yes, that sounds backwards, but what happened was I started this side hustle as a life coach, doing work that was meaningful to me, right? So I brought joy and pleasure and meaning and a new challenge into my life. As a result, when it came to my job at the bank, I kind of gave less fucks. I was not working as many long hours. I was not going to every stupid meeting. My job was no longer my end all be all. It was less my identity at this point because I had this new identity. I'm like, I'm becoming a life coach and an entrepreneur and somebody who helps people for a living. I was stepping into this new identity. The identity of being the corporate badass was starting to fall away. As a result, I started to perform better in less hours. It was hilarious when they came to me and offered me a promotion because I had already given my 6-month resignation notice in January of 2018. I was like, look, y'all, I'm going to be leaving here in June to, run my business full time. Well, after that, it must have been March, April, May. They offered me a promotion to run a team of 25 people. And I started laughing. I'm like, this is like Office Space, the movie. It's like when he got hypnotized and stopped doing work and they kept offering him promotions. That's how I felt. I'm like, are y'all crazy? I am barely here. But when I reflect back, the reason they wanted me to stay and were throwing more money at me and a bigger team is I was swift. I was decisive. I was only doing what mattered. I was not working long hours. I was not burned out. I was like in and out and efficient and tight and was like kind of fucking killing it, to be honest with you, because I had this other endeavor to focus on. I can think of endless examples in my business of when I finally got over myself and just raised my price and sales didn't become harder. Sales became easier because when you have a higher price, you attract a higher caliber buyer that's not going to wishy-washy back and forth you over $500. They're like, oh, $7,500, that's in range of what I want. Here's my credit card. I can think of so many times that I agonized over social media posts, spent hours making a 10-slide carousel with graphics and a caption, like literally a masterpiece work of art, and it gets 4 likes. And then my stupid ass reel that took 5 seconds to make and wasn't even that good is the one that goes viral. I can think of so many times that I just shot my shot, Travis Kelce style. A great example is for my summit that we just held, the Grab Life by the Goals annual summit. I was creating my speaker lineup, and there is this, frankly, celebrity that I see on LinkedIn, Jen Drummond, and she has an incredible story. And I see that she's speaking and has a book coming out. And I'm like, there's no way this woman would speak at my summit. We're small potatoes compared to what she's doing. For example, she came through our summit and flew from us to Good Morning America the following day for her book launch. Everything in my mind was giving too many fucks. I was like, she won't come to our thing. I'll never be able to afford her speaker fee. She's going to think I'm crazy for reaching out to her. But you know what? I got over it. I reached out and somehow the stars aligned for her to come speak at a fraction of her typical speaking fee. If I had let my own head trash get in the way of reaching out to her, she wouldn't have come. We wouldn't have had that experience. I mean, let's back up even further. What about finding the balls to host a summit in the first place? When I hosted the first Grab Life by the Goals annual summit in 2023, I had been trying to do this for a couple of years through COVID land, and it hadn't gone that well. My first hotel summit, I sold 4 tickets. The event I did after that, 38 tickets. So by the time I got this download on a plane to host a summit, I had every reason in the world to give fucks and say, I'm not qualified. I've kind of struggled with this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this, but I did not let those fucks get in my way. And here we are, 2 years later, 2 successful giant conferences under our belt. And if I would have let those fucks stop me, I wouldn't be able to say that I went for it. And I would live with that feeling of not reaching my potential and having regret inside of me. I cannot imagine it being 2024 and still saying, maybe someday I'll host that summit. Maybe someday I'll be qualified enough or be ready. So I want to quickly talk about why we do this. I believe it boils down to 2 reasons. One is resistance, which is an avoidance tactic to keep us safe. And the other is attachment to a particular outcome. So let's start by talking about resistance. When we give too many fucks and we throw up roadblocks between what we want and what we're doing, it's actually a safety mechanism. When we say, I'm not qualified to apply for the job, it protects us from the discomfort of having to apply for the job and possibly get rejected. So it provides short-term relief, but it robs us long-term of the life that we want to have. A lot of times we don't do things because we don't want to be judged. So it feels temporarily safer not to do it all, not to post that thing, not to say that thing, not to set that boundary. We don't want people to think we're bad or selfish people. Why do we put up so much resistance around what other people think of us? I ultimately believe it's because we're good people. We don't want others to think that we are bad or selfish by asking for what we want, setting a boundary, raising a price, etc. So we give all of our power to them, and then we stay in this constant low-key state of resistance indefinitely. And it's honestly no way to live. Let's talk about attachment. I have gone sideways the most when I have been overly attached to a particular outcome. I give so many fucks about reaching a revenue goal. These get me all the time, these revenue goals, or overly attached to a certain number of people coming to my webinar, or a certain number of people liking my posts, or things happening on a certain timeline. When I get overly attached to something, it literally never happens. It is the formula for the thing not to happen. So this is manifestation 101. We call it healthy detachment. We want to have a very clear vision of what we want out of life. We want to know what the goal is, but the way to manifest is not to be super attached to how or when or this person or that job or this revenue number. When we do that, we get our panties in a bunch and nothing happens. So the idea is to be very, very committed to the vision and very open to how it manifests. When I live my life like this, magical things happen. Right now, for example, I'm in a state of openness to new revenue streams that I can't even predict right now. And the craziest things happened in February last month. Consulting opportunities fell out of the sky, speaking engagement fell out of the sky. Like crazy conversations are happening. I'm building a funnel that I didn't really have in my mind because I am just open to receiving money in weird and wild ways. And that brings me to the final point of this episode, which is that giving less fucks requires faith. It's an act of faith. Now, faith is a loaded word. I don't know if you are religious, spiritual, atheist, agnostic. It doesn't really matter. But it reminds me of a conversation that my bestie, JJ, and I have all the time. So JJ's been on the podcast. She's my bitch, please bestie. You can go back and listen to our episode. Whenever we are spiraling or overly attached to something, she says to me, Lauren, none of this is real anyway. Time isn't real. We're only experiencing life through one particular lens. Like it's all made up, is what we say all the time. And it's so relieving. Now, I'll take this even a step further, and this is going to be some Christian language. I don't necessarily identify as Christian, but I have felt a pull lately to be studying the Bible from an academic lens and reading some Christian-based books. I don't know why. If you'd have asked me about this a year ago, I would have said, nope, I don't mess with that stuff. But right now, I'm weirdly open to it. And there's a message in these books that's coming through for me that may be helpful for you too. Now, whether you relate to the Christian language or not, just try and transpose it to your life. When you give too many fucks and when you try and figure it out yourself and do it yourself and not rely on anybody else for help or try and force a particular outcome, you are not acting in faith. You are not showing the universe or God or Jesus or whatever you relate to that you know they have your back. When you are giving so many fucks and trying to jam a certain outcome and not piss anybody off and make sure it's perfect and not step over any lines, you really are blocking out the abundant spiritual resources that are on the ready to help you. So again, transpose this to any flavor of spirituality that you have, but try this language out for the next few days and let me know how it goes. Here it is. I'm not going to give fucks about this thing. I'm going to try faith. I'm going to go forth and take this messy action. I'm going to post the thing. I'm going to say the thing. I'm going to take the risk. And I have faith that no matter what happens, it will be in my favor. I might fail. I might fall on my face. I might get the exact thing that I want because I finally went for it. The universe is going to reward the bravery, the openness, the action with something. And I can't tell you how many examples I have. Like sales is a very easy example where I'm like, okay, universe, I'm going to stop giving fucks about sales and being worried about what other people think. I am going to go out and do the sales. And so I do it. I prospect, I post, I do all the things that I know work. And then the actual sale comes out of left field from nobody on that list. Like something will fall out of the sky. And I believe it's the universe rewarding my faith that if I take some inspired action, what I want will manifest. So that's the message I'm going to leave you with today. Maybe try swapping out giving so many fucks for faith and see how that treats you. Because listen, I am here today recording this podcast because I cannot bear the thought of you giving so many fucks and it robbing you of the life that you desire and deserve. That's why we're here. That's how we grab life by the goals. And I want to thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. If you loved this episode, I would be thrilled if you subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast so that you can get notified when an episode drops and we can rendezvous like this every single week. If you're feeling frisky, maybe slap a 5-star review on this bitch and maybe even some comments about what inspired you from this podcast episode. This is simply so more people can find us and join our squad of badassery. I love me some Instagram, so come find me. My handle is @LaurenWidrick, and if you screenshot and share this episode with your peeps, I'll come shower you with all the virtual hugs and kisses. Until next time, grab life by the goals, my friend.